and welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Ron. I am your host, Alan J. Campbell, back after a week hiatus. Hey, listen here. I'm gonna get into a couple of really interesting things, right? Okay. The first thing I want to go into this past weekend once again, and it's never ending. The violence in Chicago, the violence that we have here in the city of Chicago. Okay, this week we had 47 shootings, 5 fatally. We had 7 people shot in one sitting at a gathering in Garfield Park. Just people out at the park enjoying themselves. This was roughly 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, people are they're trying to live their lives and enjoy the weather. But you got a couple of jagoffs that don't have anything to do but shoot up the park. Shoot up the park. 7 people, 7 in one sitting. When we talk about gun violence and we talk about the gun situation, and they're talking, and then we're getting into the gun about people who are having these guns, and also the shootings, the 2 shootings that we had last week, the shooting in El Paso, Texas, and the other incident. Now, one of the things that the difference between these two, one was racially motivated and another one was gang related. Okay, gang related. Now let's I'm not gonna really circle the wagon on the one about gang related, because this is an ongoing thing, ongoing. Okay, Madam Mayor and Superintendent Johnson, the thing is that I applaud what you're trying to do, but you have to fully understand what you're getting into and the type of people or species of people that you're dealing with. Now, I'm just stopping short of calling them animals, because even in the animal kingdom, there is a sense of order. There is a sense of, hey, we don't do this. Animals conduct themselves better than this. So one of the things, and this is something that I mentioned to a couple of people, and I honestly think it will work. I really, really do. See, under the law, if you're caught with a gun, you're getting 5 years. Okay. Now, if you're a first time offender, you get, you get a little time off, and if you spend time in county, you are getting credit for those days. You're getting day for day. So if you catch a gun case and you happen to be sitting in county because you can't make bail, and on those and you decide that, well, you're going to take the 5 years, but you sat 2.5, you're gonna do what they call go dress out. You're gonna get on the bus. You're gonna get on that Bluebird special, go down to NRC, which is the Northern Regional RNC. I'm sorry, correct. Let me correct myself. RNC, the Regional Northern Center. That's processing when you go to prison. That's the process, basically the processing plant where you go and get your classification. Now, basically, if he's already spent 2.5 years in on a 5 years on time, he's just gonna go down there, get his IR number, and come back home. He's just basically what they call dress out. He didn't do any time. He really didn't do anything. And the unfortunate part is that you have a lot of these individuals who are repeat gun offenders. They took a couple of guys. This was maybe a week, maybe 10 days ago, 10, 14 days ago. CPD made a traffic stop, and they arrested 2 individuals who were in possession of semi-automatic weapons with armor-piercing bullets and drums, or what we call high-capacity rounds, high-capacity magazine. Each drum can hold 100 rounds. and spit those rounds out. 50 rounds can be spit out in 6 seconds. That's why that's why back in the Roaring 20s, that's why they call them the chop. That's why they call them choppers, because they will chop you in half. My suggestion, and this is something that legislation need to think about, and they're not thinking about this as far as common sense laws. First of all, this is, and like I said, I have no issue with a person owning a firearm. It's just that do it in a safe and do it in a safe manner. Do it legally. The other problem I have is why does a civilian, why is a civilian, or why does he have access, or should he need a semi-automatic weapon, such as an M16, AR-4, or AR-15? Why do you? Because you're not hunting deer. Why do you need that? Well, some say for home protection. Well, by the time that you turn this person into Swiss cheese, you won't need. There's no, the protection is over with. Protection is over with. My suggestion, and I think if they actually put this to the to legislatures and say this is what we need to do. First of all, you're too soft on gun charges. You're too soft. Okay, very simply put, if a guy catch a gun charge, he's back home before the ink on the paperwork is dry. Then guess what? He goes right back out there, picks up another gun, catches another gun charge, and it's just becoming a revolving door. Simply, my suggestion, what you do is that you increase the minimum of time and you max them out on that. Very simply put, we catch you with an illegal gun and if you're a felon caught with a gun, we're just gonna hit you with 25 years, and you're gonna do every bit of that 25. You get no good time, you don't get any parole, you get nothing. So once you start really start putting the screws to them, that might change a lot of thought process. Okay, wait a minute. If I get caught with a gun, I'm getting 25 years. If I get caught with a gun that has been fired or it's a body attached to it, just class them out with just X them out. Make it a class X felony. Very simply, it's a very simple fix. Very simple fix. A class X felony, you don't get any bond. You're getting 30 years off the bat. You starting at 30 years, 30 to 60. I don't see what the problem is. I really don't see what the problem. I know some people say, well, what happens if you get a person this was an accident or whatever? What that's going to teach them is to be more responsible. Be more responsible. Okay. There's some states that have open carry. Texas is one of them. Have an open carry. That means you can actually have a gun on your hip and walk around in the wild like it's the Wild West. Now, moving aside from that, we're going to talk about this individual that did the shooting in El Paso. Okay, and this individual did this primarily because they got this guy and they're going to charge him with a federal hate crime because he targeted a group of people. He targeted Mexicans, Hispanics, immigrants, whatever you want to call them. That's what he did. Now the argument will go this way. The argument will go, well, this individual is a Trump supporter. Okay. He's a Trump supporter, but make no mistake, Trump is not an advocate of violence. See, we're getting it confused on what he's saying and what people are doing. See, here's the thing. The unfortunate part is you have a couple of individuals, or you have individuals out there that hear and see things and interpret it in the way that they want. Hear it and interpret it. One of the things that and you have to listen to a lot of the interviews and the sound bites and hear it in its entirety. Hear it in its entirety. Okay. But before I go too far, I want to let you all know that the phone lines are open. They are open relatively early. So if you want to chime in, have a comment, give me a call here at the station at 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953 to join in this particular topic. One of the things that the wave, or the wave in this country right now, is everyone's talking about the rhetoric and the racism that the president that they believe that he is perpetrating. We have to understand something first and foremost. Racism has always been here. It never left. It's just that we as black people have been fed this story that we are equal. We are not equal. We are not. And then we have to understand we can't do the same thing, as I said before. We can't do the same thing as white people do. We just cannot do it. Now, this individual who shot and killed several individuals in El Paso, Texas, and he admitted to law enforcement he did this because he did not like Mexicans. Okay, they were doing this in the 50s to Mexicans and blacks. This is nothing new. It's just more mainstream now. That's what this is. Now, what I will say that what I will to quote the president. Now, he did go on record as saying that this was a terrible thing, a tragedy thing, and we have to understand there's no room in this country for hate, bigotry, racism. There's no room for that. Now, now we have to also look at this too. A racist or a hateful racist individual is not going to backpedal on what they feel. They're not going to do it. If an individual is racist, they're going to stick to it. They're not going to even apologize. Now, to say that he didn't, there's nothing for him to apologize for. People are taking his words and they are mixing it up to meet to satisfy their own agenda. And also, let's not leave out the Democrats, who also are fueling a lot of this rhetoric. Who are fueling this, because if, like I said before, if you go back and look at how the Democratic Party was started, the Democratic Party was started primarily by a group of racist individuals, the same people who wanted to keep blacks enslaved, the same ones. So we can't have the unfortunate part is that we have a double standard here in which we shouldn't have. We do. Okay, what's good? One group of people, or the social economics for one people, and then the social economics for another people. There is a dividing line between. There is a dividing line between that. There is a dividing line between the two. We have to fully understand racism. This country was built on racism, built on that. And so now, so all of a sudden you want to say that it has, you want to say that this man has created this environment. No, he didn't create this environment. It never left. This environment was already in existence. It's already been there. When you're still saying the first black man to do this, or the first black woman to do that, or the first black woman to do that, or the first black man to do, that's still still the dividing line on racism. When we get to a point to where we no longer say the first of anything, that's the part of that is where inclusion comes in. That's where it comes in. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. Point blank, period. Okay, that's just the direction that we are going. This is nothing new. It's on us because now our eyes are open, and we want to now we decide that we want to have a voice. Now we decide that this is what we want to do. But I'm gonna shift gears right quick. one something something that relatively was not a surprise to me this past weekend was, and I'm not sure if a lot of you are familiar with this guy. This guy's name is Jeffrey Epstein. This was a guy that was arrested and charged with sex trafficking and child pornography. Now, what was not surprising is that this guy ended up dead in his jail cell. Now they're saying suicide. They are saying suicide. Okay. I'm not so much as a conspiracy theorist, but I kind of had my own thought on what was going to happen. I kind of I figured this guy was not going to go to trial. Something was going to happen, or something was going to happen. Now, here's the thing. This guy tried to allegedly commit suicide uh, a month ago. They found him unresponsive in his cell with injuries to his neck. And at that particular point, they decide, okay, well, we're going to put him on suicide watch. Now, this guy is in federal custody in New York. Federal custody, the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Okay, you're under federal protection. Now, when you have an individual that is on suicide watch, protocol, and this is even at a state level, a state, local government, state, and federal across the board. That the this person is, if he's on a suicide watch, that you are to monitor him. You are to do a bed check. You are to do a check every 30 minutes. So that means that whatever lazy guard was not doing what he was doing, get up off his behind and walk down to the cell to make sure that this guy was doing all right. Now, here's the other thing. When you're put on suicide watch, a lot of material is removed from your cell, such as, well, naturally, they don't give you shoes with shoelaces. You get what they call slip-ons, or the Marsha Brady's. Okay, there are no sheets or pillowcases in the room. There are no objects that you can use to cut yourself, such as the tables are rounded off, the chairs are mounted to the floor, the bed is mounted to the floor in rounded corner. So help me understand, how did this guy hang himself? What did he do? He created a noose out of the threads from his clothing. And even in some instances, some places where if you're on suicide watch, they completely strip you naked. So you are in that room the same way you came into the world. The same way. So right now, the Attorney General Warren, check that, William Barr. Now, according to the Attorney General, the United States Attorney General, he was being quoted at, he is livid that this has happened, and he wants a full and thorough investigation into this. So what he's done is that not only his office is investigating, but they're doing a parallel investigation with the Justice Department and the IG, which is the Inspector General, because they want to know and want to see, how did this happen, and to see if all protocol, or all measures of protocol, were followed. They want to see if all of this was done properly. And now, looking at, and just to quoting a few things, the Attorney General said, and I'm gonna read a little portion of what he said. The Attorney General William Barr said Monday there were serious irregularities at the federal jail where Jeffrey Epstein was, where he took his own life. I was appalled, and indeed the whole department was, and frankly angry to learn that the MCC's failure to adequately secure this prisoner. Okay. We are now learning of serious irregularities at this facility, and that is a deep concern, and it demands a thorough investigation. Now, with that being said, with that being said, with finding out that there are protocols. Now, there's also been speculated that uh the union the guards union had been complaining that they were understaffed and a few other things. They were making complaints about a lot, about working conditions and so forth and so forth. Now, if that's found to be true, that there's a dereliction of duty because you are having some grievance with your union and you didn't follow procedure or you didn't secure this prisoner, that's a federal crime. Federal, federal crime. Okay. Now, to go into the part about Jeffrey, let's dive into the part. Let's dive into who Jeffrey Epstein was, because it's no longer is, but who he was. Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire financier. This was the guy behind the guy behind the guy, meaning that this is a guy who helped fund individuals' campaigns. This is where a lot of this money comes from, where it came from. This is what this guy did. But at the same time, now here's my opinion. My opinion. Do I think Jeffrey Epstein was killed? Yes. Yes, I do. Because it just doesn't fit that this guy would take his own life. And if they, and now mind you, now there's some and majority of these prisons and jails have video surveillance. Now, if there was something in that room that he should not have had, somebody's gonna catch hell for it. Now, not to mention, uh, to dive deeper into this background on why he was arrested. He was arrested for sex trafficking and child pornography. Jeffrey Epstein was part of a little group of people who was deeply into this. Okay, and he has ties to the Clintons. That is Bill and Hillary Clinton. And to be truthfully, the body count for the Clintons are really piling up. Make no mistake, the Clintons are not who you think they are and who they say they are. They're not. A lot of this goes back to them. A lot of this goes back to a lot of people probably don't know who this guy is, John Podesta. A lot of this goes back to this guy had to be silenced because if he had went to trial, he'd have told it all. He'd have told on everybody. On everybody, he would have told. I'm not buying into the theory that this guy was so spooked out that he would decide to kill himself. I'm not buying that. And already the conspiracy has already, the conspiracy theories have already started to spin, and it's starting to fuel a lot of different things. The only reason conspiracy theories exist because people no longer they are no longer gullible. They no longer believe what's being told to them. Just a sidebar, just the same thing like when people talk about the moon landing that 50 years ago that we actually went to the moon. What's puzzling is that if we went to the moon 50 years ago, how come we never went back? Well, that's just a little puzzling for me. Also, you had one of NASA's top guys come on record and say, well, the technology that we had, well, how come we never went back to the moon? Well, the technology that we had back then was outdated and obsolete, so we destroyed it. Huh? That makes absolutely no sense. Now, this is one of NASA's top guys. And we haven't been back to the moon since. Haven't been back since. That's one of the things to where the conspiracy theories begin. Hey, good evening. Welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. Who do I have on the phone and where are you calling from?
This is Jason, Georgia.
Hey, what's happening, Georgia? What's happening? All right, let me put my seatbelt. Let me put my seatbelt on. Hey, and the rest of my listeners and viewers, make sure you got your seatbelts on because this cat is here. He's gonna blow your wig back. He's gonna be, if it's a wig, a toupee, lace in, draw in. If you didn't colored your head with a serious Crayola crayon or a felt tip marker, get ready because all that's gonna come off. Go ahead, bro.
All right. So a couple of things. So let's start with immigration. think that's where you were starting at the top of the hour, and we're talking about these mass shootings and how the narrative is now switched to the justification was the dude drove or he did what he did in El Paso because he was angry about the issue of immigration and the invasion and the invocations from Trump led him to do such a heinous act. What I need for people to start understanding is that the people who report the stories to you have a story to sell you. This is, in my opinion, the illustration of the ice cream truck coming down the street, playing the song. The interesting thing about this ice cream truck is, if you look very carefully, the ice cream truck sells a number of different popsicles, fudgesicles, ice cream sandwiches, and bars, and the assortment. Good general assortment. But at the end of the day, if you look at the front driver's side corner of the ice cream truck, it usually has the words "good humor" on it. Or some other ice cream manufacturer is the title sponsor. And I'm making that illustration so that we understand that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what flavor of ice cream you select. At the end of the day, Good Humor made it. So if they decide that they want to put extra salt in your ice cream to give it that edge that makes you want that and only that, and that's what they do. And they play their tune to draw you in to buy their product. And that's the same thing with our mainstream media. They're ice cream trucks. They're serving us up some level of entertainment or some level of pleasure that we have acquired an appetite for. I think we have to be very careful with that, because the problem with appetites is sometimes they can get out of control. And it is extremely dangerous and immature, especially for African Americans or blacks, whatever you want to call yourself this week, that you don't get caught in this slurry of foolishness. Because immigration has nothing to do with you. Immigration is just the narrative that the ice cream trucks sell so that they now can push a new product in front of the new consumer. Hispanics are the new preferential minority, and they've been the new preferential minority for over 30 years now. Why do you think that for the last 20 years, your children were not and have not been able to get summer jobs, have not and cannot be able to get certain other service-orientated jobs? And even you yourself are finding difficulty acquiring gainful employment in the service industry where you used to be able to find some sort of niche, especially if you were not of the collegiate sector of bachelor's and master's degrees and all that other stuff. Where are those jobs? Those jobs that used to be seasonal and transitional have now become permanent for the immigrant, because the immigrant, for the most part, is almost, and from a managerial standpoint, and from even an economic standpoint, has automated the process of hiring. Once I give them that job, I will have less than zero problems with that employee. And the reason why I will have almost zero problems with that employee is because he needs to stay under the radar. So that means he's not going to be late from lunch. He's not going to be late showing up. He's not going to call in sick. And I say he or she, but you understand. I hope you understand that those are generic pronouns.
Right. And
okay.
And
in addition to that, they are not going to bicker about whatever the wage I have deemed is appropriate for the position I'm trying to fill. If not, I could probably get 2 or 3 for the same position that you're squabbling about. So This whole thing of immigration is really a bait and switch. And if you look at the narrative of the Good Humor ice cream truck, it is always about these little innocent poor brown children. And what's hilarious, especially when we saw the two fish that was floating in the river about 2 weeks ago, those are not brown people. And any Hispanic will tell you emphatically, don't call me brown, and I'm not black.
That's very true. That is very, very true. And
I guarantee you, to walk up to a Mexican or to speak to someone of Hispanic heritage, including your own Gutierrez, who, if I'm not correct, earlier this year maybe it was last year, was wrapped in kente cloth in solidarity, which I found was increasingly hilarious.
That was this year.
Okay. Kente cloth. A pseudo-African tradition cloth. Very interesting. But nonetheless, my point is, they will not assimilate themselves to be people of color with you. This is the only cycle that we can ever remember where Hispanics are assimilating themselves to be in solidarity with you as a quote unquote person of color. It has never happened in my experience before this cycle of foolishness. We've never seen it happen before. In addition to that, this is not anything new. This whole issue with El Paso, nothing is random, and I tell people this all the time. 2 years straight, El Paso was rated the top and most friendliest city for transitional immigrants. I need y'all to get me and understand that. For 2 years straight, according to the FBI and according to, I believe it was Homeland Security and Immigration, El Paso was ranked one of the most friendliest and accommodating cities for transitional or migrant people. Why not have some sort of incident there that uproots this whole embracive culture that was incubating down there? Because the narrative is to incite panic, incite fear, incite things that will cause disruption. That is what they do.
There's I know you've seen this movie, and which is one of my favorites. In The Dark Knight, the Joker, and a lot of people, you know, if you're not a comic book fan like I am, and maybe yourself, you have to look at everything. You have to break it down. You have to look at it for what it really is. And if you really want to talk about it, when you look at the Joker and what he said, the Joker basically was every individual that walked the face of the earth. He was just in the embodiment of doing. He just had the will of doing what people wanted to do. He just did it. He just did things. And when he made the comment to Harvey Dent when he was in the hospital, and he told Harvey Dent, he says, the thing about, he said, you know, the thing about chaos is fear. Introduce a little fear into introduce a little fear upset the established order. And that's what's going on now. If you just introduce it, you just need one thing to happen, one thing to go this way. And then if you put it in the most serene place, because now remember, also take into consideration, El Paso is the legal port of entry, because Paso and Ciudad Juarez are literally across the street from one another. So you have to come through Ciudad Juarez into El Paso to get into the country.
Sure. And for most people who do not understand, Juarez has always been a hot spot of contention for the cartel.
Not a hot spot. Ciudad Juarez is a violent city. Period.
Well, I'm being nice, but it is a
No.
violent hotspot
Yes.
for there. You have Juarez, and then you have the other underside of San Diego. But let me also throw this as it relates to El Paso. Let's not be confused that America has had a love affair with these immigrants who have consistently come back and forth over the border over the last 100 years. See, this is the foolishness that they want you to forget, and I'm going to really make it very clear. In several restaurants throughout the state of Texas, but specifically, if you look it up on the internet, there is a sign that used to be posted at the front door of the Texas Lone Star restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
The Texas Lone Star restaurant chains had a standing premise that they did not serve Negroes, Mexicans, or dogs. I'm not making this up. And these signs were in place at their opening, at the entry of these restaurants until 1973.
Soon as you come in the door.
Soon as you come in the door. No Negroes, Mexicans, or dogs. So please don't tell me this thing about America is this place, this wonderful place, and we're so willing and we're so open to immigrants. No,
we're not.
You're open to how you can manipulate them. But we're going to go a little further. Let's talk about the other part, which is Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
Jeffrey Epstein was going to be found not guilty, or he was going to get an immunity deal. We need to be very clear. Jeffrey Epstein was working on either being found not guilty or a complete immunity deal, because Jeffrey Epstein was never a perpetrator, an active perpetrator of any of those events. It's going to come out very shortly that no one can directly say that Jeffrey Epstein actually did anything sexually inappropriate with these women directly. What he did do, which was why he made so much money, which was why he was so famous, is he provided the atmosphere that gave you these pleasure zones. See, and these are things that broke people will never understand. Certain elites, they have playgrounds.
Clintons.
Okay? They have playgrounds. These are not, there's a movie that's coming out, and I think it's actually, no, excuse me, there's two movies. One movie is called The Hunt, that Universal Pictures has canceled its release.
Yes.
Okay? The reason why these folks are canceling their release, there's a little bit of truth in every lie. Okay? The other movie, which has not been pulled off, has a storyline of an elite family who is having their son marry this girl who's not from there. And part of her initiation is, can she survive the hunt of the night as her initiation into this elite family? This is not all fairy tale, people. This is how some people actually do exist. They live in these playgrounds, and you are toys for their amusement. Now, I know for some of these super spiritual people who want to talk about Jesus and all that other stuff, how can that happen? It's reality. Jeffrey Epstein, his only crime, which really technically wasn't a crime, was he provided the atmosphere that allowed you to explore these pleasures. Now, please make no mistake about it. I do not condone or approve, so make sure there's no one who doesn't understand those terms. I don't get down with any of that, sex trafficking, pedophilia, no. None of that is acceptable. However, we do have to understand that in the minds of some of these people that money is no object, and their influence, including the Clintons and the Podestas and several other families that would probably hurt your feelings if you knew who they were.
Yeah.
This is what they do. This is their entertainment. When you go out to watch a movie or bowl or catch a ball game, in that same spirit of entertainment, this is what they do. The man had 3 mansions, 2 of them in the United States, another one off of an island that he purchased.
Right, an island that he purchased.
These are not conversations that broke people understand. It's just not going to be something you understand because your mind can't fathom that. You can't understand the fact that someone is actually has a mechanized system that pulls this off like a circus. It comes to town and rotates. And they bring in certain people to entertain for them. This is what you're dealing with. And the fact that this man was about to tell, hey, look here, I'm going to give you my black book of everybody that came. All I need for you to do is let me go. Because remember now, he was already had been given a slap on the wrist 4 or 5 years earlier.
He was given a slap on the wrist. Now, the thing about that is that he received house arrest, no probation, and did not care what I'm saying. He did not even have to register as a sex offender.
Correct.
Well,
who makes that decision?
Right. In fact, I got it right here. Let me read this. Let me throw this out at everybody so they got a full.
But my point is, who makes that decision? Other than the prosecutor agrees to it, the judge signs off on it.
Correct.
So this is not a matter of, well, this is what I want, you're going to make it happen. No. That goes to show the level of high influence that this person was dealing with.
Right. See, people like him don't go, like you said, they don't go to prison. It says Epstein's arrest last month launched a separate investigation on how authorities handled his case initially when similar charges were first brought against him in Florida more than 10 years ago. U.S. Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta resigned last month after coming under fire for overseeing that deal when he was the U.S. attorney in Miami.
Before Miami.
Right.
Now, what does that say? That means that they already knew, excuse my French, he already knew that his dick was in the register. I didn't get caught with mine in the register. I need to get out of here while I still can.
Yeah.
Jeff, if you smart, I would do the same. But my point is, you are dealing with a level of influence and power that is beyond what you can fathom. And then this person who is under federal protection winds up dead in a federally protected environment.
Right. Doesn't make sense.
Well, first of all, the fact that they even threw it out there shows you how little they value your intelligence. The fact that they even threw this spaghetti up against the wall and said, let's see if this sticks, shows you that they have absolutely no regard for your general amount of intelligence to say, that don't smell right. They don't even care anymore. There is no respect given. But my point to that is that shows you what is coming next. And I'm going to say this because I need to be very quick. The American public needs to understand this, particularly the African American. Keep saying this. Most of y'all not listening because you're in a medically induced coma and you think you're woke. The 2020 census and the 2020 election, if you are not careful, will literally write you off as an extinct species, even though you're still existing. Need y'all to make sure you understand that. It will economically and socially write you off as an extinct species within the construct of how government works, policies works, programs work, and anything that has anything to do with your well-being. And if you're not careful, you will be absolutely forced into criminality, which makes it an absolute pipeline to return you back to slavery. Because you will not have any of the resources or representation to sustain your existence.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And this whole thing of reparations, if you don't understand that that is the least that you must get, and I don't mean Mitch McConnell said the worst thing that he could ever say at anybody, any black person that's within the state of Kentucky, if you ever vote for them again, you need to be castrated. Mitch McConnell stood on the Capitol Hill steps and said, well, we gave you Obama. That's your reparations.
That he did say.
Now, if you are not understanding the level of racism and systemic white supremacy that man just spoke from, he basically said, if you niggas don't get back on this plantation and act right, we'll put you there and won't think nothing else about it. We gave you a day of rest. Obama was a placeholder. Period. He was only supposed to do 4, but that's a whole nother story. Obama was your day of rest, niggas. We gave you that. Now, if he was in that, and if you wanted something, you should have went to your Moses.
Right.
But my point is, y'all got to wake up, because this is not a game. This is absolute chess, and y'all still playing checkers and dominoes.
I will. Yeah. You absolutely.
You honestly think that the same government that performed radioactive open experiments on teenagers and adolescents in Indiana, in Tuskegee, and assassinated other people in between those 2 experiments, along with the other things that they were doing? You honestly think they've actually went to sleep and stopped doing anything to you? Why do you think homosexuality and lesbianism has skyrocketed in your community? Skyrocket.
Because and listen, people, and he's correct.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
Sorry, let me just say this.
Go ahead.
And it skyrocketed because of the very program that your Black Panthers started, that the government reintroduced, but used as a weaponized tactic. It's called WIC. You don't think that those people that stopped you and told you, listen to this. If you're on the WIC program, 90% of you have been told not to breastfeed your children.
Correct.
And they have demonized you for using the very thing that God intended for you to nourish your own seed. But at the same token, they're encouraging the white women and every other race of woman. Your breast milk is gold. Your baby needs that. That is the lifeblood of their existence. And you too stupid to understand how in the world can they tell 2 women 2 different things. And you ain't figured this out yet. They already took your protector out of your community. Now they're weaponizing the very food you eat, the very medicines that they give you. You don't think those are weaponized? How many children had autism 20 years ago? How many children had scrambled eggs 40 years ago? And look at now, which is a direct proportion to the amount of children who turn into adults and adolescents that have developmental problems, social problems, and end up going to jail or end up getting killed or killing someone.
Right. These are the scrambled eggs of our community.
Not to mention the amount of breeding that happens,
Ooh.
where 2 or 3 of y'all is going with the same nigga.
Oh, no, wait. Let me throw this in. Let me jump on that. And not only that, but it's you like you said, breeders, and then you with two or three different people, and they drop it, and you just continuously pumping these babies out, one after the other after the, and then there's some of you not even taking care of the ones that you got, but you keep bringing more into the system, into the world, which means that these are the ones that are going into the system. Then
So
you get wait, wait.
here's a different way to say it, or one way that I've told people. Other races conceive children. We are breeding children. Think about that concept. That's my few minutes.
All right. All right. Thanks a lot, brother. You cannot say enough about that. And we have, and the biggest thing, people, we are still, like I said before, we are still walking around in this medically induced self no let me phrase that, this self-induced medical coma, while everybody and around us continues to move, continues. When he says the words about breeding, yeah, we have to start looking at things for the reality of it. Then when you breed in, when these children come into the world, then what happens? They're either being taken care of in such a poor way or not being taken care of at all. Then someone else has to step in, take over, step up and take over, and now their life is put on hold. And this type of environment continues to perpetuate itself in our community. We can't worry about that dude in the White House and what he may or may not be perpetrating, whether it's racism, nationalism, or whatever. We can't worry about that. We have to worry about what's going on with ourselves, such as the violence in our own community, the constant breeding that we continue to do. And as you say, we don't produce children, we breed them. We have to start taking a hard look at ourselves. When he went on to say, and the thing about the WIC program, absolutely correct. But at the same time, these are people, and when you have, like he said, that this is something that the Black Panthers started, but government stepped in and took over, and now they control it, and so now they're dictating to you what you can and how you're supposed to be feeding your child. And then like you said, they're demonizing mothers who breastfeed their children, saying that it's not healthy. Are you kidding me? If the mother is taking care of herself, she's taking care of herself, doing the things that are needed and necessary to create nourishment, pure nourishment for that child. Certain things don't happen. And when and to really do the research on the influx, the uptick in more children with disabilities, autism, has increased by this generic by this generic a way of feeding our children. We have to start looking at the bigger picture, people. Immigration. We have to start looking at the bigger picture, because once this stuff starts, once this really starts to progress, we're going to be a forgotten people, and we're getting close to that. Getting very, very close to that. But I see the lights flashing in the distance, and the helicopter is about to land on the pad. So that means that's all the time we have here on iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my sponsors. I know, hey, I didn't forget, but to Captain Hook over there on 85th and Cottage Grove, 85th and Cottage Grove, 103rd and King Drive, and 15922 Kedzie in Markham. If you want some really good food, if you're hungry, some fish, chicken, shrimp, and their wonderful sides, get your booty down to one of their locations and get full. Get full. And in closing, not my monkey, not my circus. To the Batmobile.
Go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.